I think people call me an Oreo really because I don't do what they expect me to do.
I think people call me an Oreo because I have a very eclectic taste, especially when it comes to music and what entertains me.
My tone, for some reason, isn't black.
I play hockey. A lot of people don't know that. They just assume that I play basketball or football because my shoulders are broad, but no.
I'm not like every other black person that you've encountered.
It's tall, skinny, lanky, braces, glasses, heavy book bag full of school crap in it.
Whenever they hear me and then they see me in person, like, oh, I thought you were like a 23-year-old white kid.
Oreo is my favorite brand of cookies.
Wonder if I gave an Oreo.
Urban Dictionary describes Oreo as a black person who is said to act white because of the way they dress, talk, or act. The idea of being called an Oreo is to label someone that doesn't fit into the social norms of the African American Latino community, such as hanging out around home or even preferring to date someone outside their race. If you speak proper, you're an Oreo. If you play anything other than basketball or football, such as skateboard or hockey, you're an Oreo. Even if you like pop, rock, or EDM music, well, you're definitely an Oreo.
I was reading, and she was like, "Shut up, white boy," and I'm like, "What the hell?" I'm like, "You can't be talking to me, I'm black." And my friend was like, "I think she's talking about you."
First time someone called me an Oreo, I felt insulted, man. It was my brother, and he would bully me literally all the time for everything I do. Like everything, nothing was accepted for him.
I don't really consider my brother to be an Oreo.
He would bully me literally all the time.
It could be anything from what cartoons that I watch to I'm a big huge fan of Andre 3000, so I'm listening to like the Love Below album instead of messing with Big Boy album. I'm listening to Andre 3000. He's like, why you listening to that sissy stuff? And that's like PG-13 for what he really said.
The first time someone called me an Oreo, I felt somewhat an understanding. When I realized what it meant, it's kind of obvious, you're black, but you're white on the inside. I realized, my surroundings, I grew up around white people. I was one of few black people, so I understood where they could have gotten that from. Maybe my mannerisms or how I act. It comes from, how you grow up.
I was kind of frustrated but curious because I didn't get it. Because up to that point, they only knew me like through like talking, because it was just through like Xbox. So they hadn't seen me or met me in person.
So here's what I don't understand. None of us are white. What gives people the courage to categorize us into the box of an Oreo? What is even a stereotypical black boy?
A stereotypical black boy most likely plays basketball or football.
Sells drugs.
Doing decent in school.
Doesn't really have a vocabulary that's higher than like a third grader.
Got 3 baby mamas.
Pants sagging.
Going real stereotypical, fried chicken and Kool-Aid.
So we don't fall under the stereotypical black boy prototype, but what is even a stereotypical white boy?
I think the stereotypical white boy is just common.
Society accepts them really easily.
Privilege.
Privileged. Someone who can skate by.
Am I a stereotypical white boy?
You were when we first met. You're not now. Well, you're not now.
So we're not stereotypical black boys, but does that raise the discussion of us being safe black? Safe is the amount of exposure that will cause no harm or damage. Does that mean we are individuals of color that wouldn't offend or make white people feel uncomfortable?
I've had someone tell me that they thought I was mixed race. They thought maybe my mother was white. That really caught me off guard. My entire life, I've had black parents. I've never even thought of myself as someone that was not black, but to have someone just who's known me for a while to then say, "Oh no, I thought maybe one of your parents was white," really caught me off guard.
My husband was bringing Miles and his friend home from school on the train one day, and they were talking and engaged in conversation, and a lady came up to her, a white lady came up to him and asked him, "Oh my God, your boys are so nice. They're playing so nice, and they speak so lovely. Like, how are they supposed to be speaking? They're 2 young men. They're in middle school. How are they supposed to be talking?" She said, where do they go to school? What kind of schooling? And how possibly are they speaking like that?" And I said, "What did you say to her? Because I probably would have had a few choice words for it, because why would it be different for two young black boys being on the train speaking proper English, as she was calling it, and not yelling and screaming and having a decent conversation, and she thought that was so strange.
I get that maybe you thought I was different than what you stereotypically think, but that doesn't mean that there has to be an outside force that makes it that way. You know, it can't just be who I am.
Safe Black is educated, socialized, acculturated between a white and black community. So if we are safe black through the eyes of the beholder, who else is safe black? Matter of fact, who is a non-threatening black entertainer?
Childish Gambino. Will Smith.
Will Smith.
I feel like Drake is safe black.
I guess you could call him an Oreo too then, because he's black and white, he might be safe black.
Like he's hood as shit on his songs, but then he goes to SNL and he's proper as fuck.
Am I safe black?
Safe black falls under the assumption of code switching. I know, another thing added to the list. But what is code switching?
Code switching sometimes comes even when it's not conscious. It could be subconscious.
Someone who switches their demeanor or depending on their surroundings, who they're around.
Do we sometimes code switch to fit in?
I try to be the same person in any group that I'm with, because if I'm not, then what's the point of me even being in that group if they're not going to accept me for who I really am?
I can obviously say that I've done that a few times. I code switch at times to make sure that people don't judge me, for sure. Like I said before, I just don't like feeling outcast. It's a very lonely feeling, you know. For an example, you could be at a party. I tend to party with a lot of Latin people, and being that I kind of have a little background in Spanish,
Suavemente, bésame.
They kind of automatically assume that I should be fully Spanish, so I try to play that role, as opposed to, you know, being the only black kid in the room. You know, yeah.
In high school was probably when I did it most, because it was mostly like white and Jewish kids. So, you know, like my grade was like the most diverse, but even then it was maybe like 10 out of the 40 of us were black.
So we pretty much gave you a rundown of an Oreo, but we didn't really explain to you how we felt when we were really called an Oreo.
The person that called me an Oreo was black too, and then she was also an Oreo.
I love you, you love me.
So like it was just like kind of like our own little culture.
Oreo is just something else I can just put in the bag of names people are calling me and just learn how to either deal with it, because like 9 times out of 10, most of the names I was being called were girls. Girls were calling me.
Not surprised, but kind of just a little angry at people's ignorance.
It messes with your self-esteem, and that just beats you in itself.
Our aspirations in life are to be something different than the stereotypical black and Latino men we usually see. And instead of being praised by our community, we get made fun of because we are leaders, not followers. If having our own mind leads to us being called an Oreo, then what are you? Are you a follower or a leader? Do you dream of becoming a drug dealer or an entrepreneur? What are your goals rather than the stereotypical goals that get put upon black and Latino men? Right. You don't know. You're confused. But I tell you one thing, we'd rather be called Oreos than the stereotypical black and Latino men you usually see.